What's going on? Back again for another one. Uh, this one is a classic series I used to do. This topic for something I seen one card do, then I found another card do it well, and another card, and another card. But not only that, it affects how we approach a problem, also the price of certain cards, as well as the effectiveness. And we just gotta look at it in those three dimensions. So here today I have a Pacific card I want to talk about, because I know my last one I talked about that Vegeta being running every deck and how everybody don't know how to run a different overrealm. But you can watch that video to see my rant on that. But for this one, I wanted to get into this Pacific one that's like pretty centerfold and green, starting from the top of the list. So without further ado, let's get into it. Right now, this is kind of like the foremost card that people are running in a green deck's main deck, and some just side decking. Really powerful card. Why are we running it? To get rid of Unisons. And right now, green gets rid of Unison with the utmost ease of any color, hands down. And I got a little rant on that at the end, but first I wanted to talk about uh that this card being a 1 energy, get rid of 3 markers. That's basically turn 1. And there's no like really turn mark or energy restriction where you can use that auto. You just combo it and just pay energy and you get rid of 3 markers. I'm like, the only thing that's surviving this is like a Unison that plus 2 markers. And on top of that, if you're green or a Master's Teachings, you can play it for your hand and use it as a critical beater. This card is always coming out because it has the keyword deflect. And critical damage, as we know, when it's dealt, damage don't go to your hand. It just goes straight to the drop. And that's one of things that green has been good at, as resource denial. And it KOs a card. It does a lot of things. But I say of the most things people use it for is the second auto. And like, if we're just gonna use it for one thing, there's, in my opinion, other options. But for certain matchups, I can see how this is like the top of the food chain. Getting on to the other ones. This has been one of my favorite generic 8 drops since it came out. I like to fit this in most of my green decks because it's a generic one. It only requires like a 1 card setup, which is having a Z extra card just to set it up, and your leader being green, which is pretty easy to do. Which you mitigate that in the first turn or 2, and then on turn 3 you just drop this and you get mileage off it. And like, the other thing I like about this, it's not a one-time use. You can use it for as long as it stays on your board. And like, if it lives more than 1 turn, it gets more value than the previous card. So not only that, it works in unison with the rest of your green deck if you're choosing to play mono green. You can splash colors and color code it, but This is best for mono green, even though you can use it in a deck that's blending a lot of different colors. You don't know what this does, as you may or may not have read. When this swings, it removes 2 markers. And you can keep triggering that. So in essence, if you swing at a Unison and they don't negate it, they losing 3 markers, which is really big. Also, it has a side effect once per turn on the second auto, which it also has a KO effect, or it helps the opponent, or it makes the opponent discard. You get the choice between those 2 options, which is pretty essential of what green wants to do. These are both cards that use 1 energy, but this is kind of like the cheaper of the 2, like $20 cheaper. Also, this has an SPR from Critical Blow that looks really nice, but if I'm on a budget, I am probably going to run a couple copies of these. But even if I'm not on a budget, I really like this card, so I'm just gonna run it because it's very versatile to how I want to play. And like, there is no risk in swinging with this and just removing markers, unless you play like black with petrification negate, or like yellow that has like a stun effect that uh counterplaying it when it comes out. Because that's, I say, the balance of this card is no protection, but how the game is designed today, most of the interaction on play usually deals with like 5 or less. So it not having like deflector barrier doesn't really matter, as long as it gets to swing. That's the important part. And like, I first introduced to this when I was playing Hatch, and like, man, this card made that matchup a lot harder. But besides that, there's one other card that I want to mention. Somebody else brought it up in the other social groups that I wanted to highlight that was pretty good, that does similar things. Let me get to that card. This is the other card. Let me better clarify that. Cell Pursuit of Despair. I was using this exclusively in a cell deck, but it's generic for most green decks. And it's another way green does what green does, which is kind of being the Unison enforcer, as well as pressure, and being a kind of like a mid-range boss. I'd say the only difference from the other 2 is it costs 1 more energy to play. With this, if you and your opponent remove the token from game, you can remove 2 markers. So this is the active main versus the active battle and the attack auto from the previous cards, which is the other threshold. If you want to go about it that way, you have options. And that's another thing I wanted to highlight. There's more than one way to achieve the goal, so you got to look at all your options and how you want to approach them, given the most popular matchups that you're probably going to most likely face, and see what combination of cards works best for you. That is the important thing. And like I always say, test it out, see what works. And if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. If it does, you gotta polish how you want to optimize it. But there's no wrong choices here. Uh, I like this card, and the fact that it's a double strike, it can possibly end the game for a bit cheaper, because usually how you want to end the game is on a double strike or triple strike. That's like the most uh general thing that you want to do if you can. But if you can't, it has a few other abilities which is good for offense or defense, like I was saying before. Also, this has an errata. Let me just change it to the errata. Boom. Uh, it's remove one of your or your opponent's tokens. So if they like token negates, I guess, we can remove that for extra value and just remove 2 markers, which is kind of like a caveat versus the other two. Given the situation, it can like really pop up or matter. Or not even just token negates. If you're playing like against like that green trunks deck, remove one of those tokens for value just to hit the Unisons or any deck that make token, even Token Toa. I want that deck to make a comeback. But each thing or each card has its own uniqueness to it and gives you a very different approach of however you want to handle things. I like this. I'm gonna try to incorporate it or test it out more, but I'm more in tune with the 8-drop. There's some things that can still hit this like walking the line of that threshold of the being at the right energy card to be, or energy cost to be affected by cards. 6 is kind of like a weird number. There's few cards that can affect 6 drops, but not many, and even less for 8 drops. So you get that differentiation. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention and just give some perspective on like progressing your strategy while handling side obstacles. And usually those side obstacles is kind of like anchored into the Unisons, because like there's a lot of cards that's like tied to Unisons being on board, and green has a bevy of ways to remove them. Getting on to my side note, right, a little bit that I just wanted to bring into perspective. I say there's not too many decks that like centers around Unisons anymore, because I know 3 years ago that was the big thing, but it's just there in case it comes up or you're denying aspect of the deck. I think there's like very few decks that central lives and die on a Unison. Cause like we used to have a lot of decks like that back in the Unison format 3 years ago, but we are in Zenkai format, where in Zenkai format your central focus is revolving around how effective you use your Z energy and the cards that plays off amount of Z energy that you have. So I think maybe, or I like what Bandai was doing. It was what I'm getting at, where they was kind of branching out with how other colors interact with Unisons, because that used to be the big thing back in Unison format, and it's kind of brought back with the Z Unisons aspect of it, because generally, and also why people have like a focus of dealing with the Unison first, the two most safest swings in the game is your leader swing and your unison swing, because there's not a lot of cards to or strategies that interact with unisons effectively. There's some that interact, but not as effectively as some others, or mostly locked in the big color of like green, because I feel like green is like the police of the game because they check everything. But unison's not the, or shouldn't be the central focus, just a complementary add-on for how your strategy plays. And like with the Kid Coup, it provided an interesting way of interacting with unisons. I didn't mind that aspect. I just wanted every color to have something similar, or a deck that did something similar that interacted with unisons. And it seemed like we were going in that direction, but I guess that needs to be retooled a bit. I don't know, giving the pushback on that, which I thought was kind of like a little bit over the top, because like that was the big thing that hasn't been fully corrected in the past. Because like that's why if you familiar with the topic of Zamasu the Eliminator, because that used to counterplay unisons and bounce them right back to hand or wherever. If that was left unerrated, that was the only thing that could interact with unisons effectively. This blue and yellow card called Zamasu the Eliminator. If you know the history and lore behind that from like a few years ago. But they changed that because people didn't like how it took them off curve after investing like on the normal 2 or 3 energy into their unison. There was like two schools of thought. Some didn't mind it. They just wanted to give all of the different colors a way to do that or something similar. And there were just some that had the mindset of this shouldn't be in the game, period. I was kind of on the former. I didn't mind it. I just wanted it to be so gelled into one color or combination of color, because it was like a blue yellow card. And I kind of like feel like it's the same way. It's just give every color a unique way to interact with like the unisons, and just have it tied into their own identity. Green is just flat out does it, but it would have been interesting if it was paired with KOing or discarding cards. That would be unique. Like yellow can be resting, or blue can be like getting or switching the energy to active mode, and red, so on and so forth. Like it was before, but that's my thoughts on that. What is your thoughts? I just wanted to leave that up there and just give y'all a nice lengthy video just to debate and discuss about. Cause I think it can exist if it's done correctly, and like still just so tight over that and just killing unisons. And like most of like 99% of the matchups that I've seen on like, I never seen a Kid Coup interaction where they killed it off the leader effect like the same turn it was played. I never seen it. And like there's another interaction that where it's possible, but nobody, and I mean nobody, either plays that or sets that interaction up. Nobody. And that was crazy for me. But I always have a different perspective on the game. And like you know, man, I'm a Z warrior. We don't complain, we adapt. But a lot of interesting ways to approach the game. That's why I like this game most of all, because there's a lot of different avenues, and this is just like the tip of the iceberg. I'm pretty sure there's more ways that specifically green can handle unisons while continuing on to press forward in the strategy on curve. Because you generally you just trying to play on curve and just manage your energy and resources as effectively as you can, because like that's what the game is about. And like, and the big thing is just investing those resources and just getting rewarded or denied. But that's parts of the game, and then that's what you sign up for as a player. You gotta expect it and be prepared to navigate those sometimes treacherous, or depending on the matchup or skill difference in between you and your player, the ease. It's just part of the game. And I'm like, ugh. I just hate when a good strategical back and forth and just like tactical gameplay is just kind of coddled. But that's all I'm gonna say on it. I'll probably save it deeper for my next real talk of the year. But that's what I have for you, just to feast on it. This has been my mirror identities, where we just compare cards and different approaches of similar stature and just weigh it. Do you think Gohan is the premier, or the other two options? Which, if you cannot say, why not have all three and just flex how you want to use them? But like I said before, there's different access and price differences, because like the Gohan, or the first Gohan, is called SGR or Son Gohan rare, and then the rest were SRs or SPRs, had SRs or SPR variants. So there's ways to play the game effectively in your means, or however you want to approach it, and that's why I bring light to these mirror identities. Thanks for watching, and catch y'all on the next one if you stayed this long. But just wanted to give y'all some meat until the next video, and be sure to check out the playlist, because there's a lot stocked in here that you may or may not know. Catch you later.